Now we'll move on to item number 7, comments from council members. First one, 2 items for myself. Recognize the San Bruno community for its resiliency during these difficult times, including those that volunteer and contribute to our community by demonstrating human kindness. Councilmember Mason is going to have one, so I won't touch on that. That's kind of what helped precipitate that. These have been some challenging times, and there are folks that there are many that do a lot of things that we do not know and not maybe wishing to be acknowledged. But I want to generally thank. There are folks that have been volunteering at the COVID-19 test sites, both here and in other communities. There are those that volunteer at the Second Harvest food giveaway, which happens at Bel Air. But also, I also want to thank the chancellor for the community college district. For the Second Harvest, for a large food distribution, they were trying to get something more North County, and one of the other community colleges basically was doing it, and Skyline said no. So I made a call to the chancellor and checked, and thanks to him and the staff at Skyline College, they will be doing a food distribution at Skyline College beginning of next week. They're telling me they don't need advertising. They want to get themselves in a sync, and they already have plenty. But I did want to thank him for making that happen. There also, I was informed by Leslie too. We've had many folks that have called, volunteered, that are doing errands and yards for seniors who are running their errands. And many that we don't even know that are doing that, but those are some of the individual connections Leslie's been doing through the Community Foundation. It was also interesting being at the city park. They had the ice cream truck that was there, and no, I didn't have any ice cream. I was behaving, but there was a gentleman that went up, paid for his group, threw down $100 and said, pay for as many as you can behind me.
Sweet.
And that is the kind of stuff that I wanted to acknowledge and bring up. Not a lot of names, but I think there's a lot of folks that are not even mentioned here that do a lot. So those are the kind of things that even in challenging times, people step forward. People continue to show their care and kindness and show the city with heart. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. On second bullet point, discuss having a drive-in theater night in San Bruno. So I just wanted to see if this is something that the council may want to embark upon or at least look into more. Don't want to set up expectations that it's a definite. There's costs, there's arrangements. I have talked to the mall and Camp Fran. They're open to the idea of doing it outside. Obviously, they have some open space at this time. I have spoken to somebody in the community of business who would be willing to be a sponsor. I have spoke to the city of Burlingame, who had one at the golf center, just to get some of the facts and figures, how they did it, what the kind of costs were. So this is far from could it be, but I didn't want to just us plate things up to staff without doing a little bit of homework, see if it's viable. And again, it takes logistics and working together, but at least there is willingness on some people's parts to have that. Things could change, and we could be off the watch list, and maybe that modifies things. But Burlingame did do one. They did the movie Hook. They recommend a movie not so long, but because of the lateness of when you start. But they are going to do another one because the turnout. They sold out like a day and a half for tickets for the vehicles. So anyway, that is something I didn't know whether council would like to see some more effort put in and see if it's something that can be worked out, and keeping in mind staff's time, keeping in mind costs. And that's it for my 2 bullet points. Thank you, Marty.
So I don't know if are we having a discussion, I guess? So
I got a thumbs up from Marty, so I got that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we talked about it a couple months ago at one of our one-on-ones. So I think it's at that time, I don't think that they were ready, but I think it's a great idea. We attended the San Mateo County Fair one. I thought it was a little costly, to be honest. It was like $35 or $37 per car. But a percentage of it went to San Mateo County Strong, and my kids had never been to a drive-in, and they absolutely loved it. So I think it would be great. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, it was just they said all ages, so it was kind of they said it was fun to see.
One important question: did you make sure you turn your car on every so often so you don't get a dead battery?
Yes. Yep. But it's not like the old days where they put speakers in your car. You have to tune in to a certain station.
And that costs money. So, but yes, I was trying to figure that part out too. I got educated. So, okay, we'll take that from there. And then let's move on to item B, Councilmember Linda Mason. First item.
So I actually did want to ask if there was going to be if there's going to be discussion, if there's public comment, but because I know that there's someone on the phone that's going to speak that wanted to make a comment on this. But this has been, I know, a bit of a controversial issue because we're concerned about people's health. I do really want to encourage us to try this outdoor dining. I'm actually not set on any specific times. 11 to 3 was what we came up with on a Saturday. I feel pretty strongly that either we're going to do it now or we're not going to do it because this is really our warm season, September into usually it's about Columbus Day weekend. And after that, I think that our window is really just closed because it gets windy and it starts getting really cold. So I did talk to some of the retail shops, and the retail shops were open to trying this because it's one of the impacts that I've heard other cities have had is retail has been hurt if there's been closures. But it depends on how long they've been closed. And I think some of these streets have been closed all weekend as opposed to just a couple of hours. So I think we should try it. I mean, if it doesn't work, we don't have to continue it. But I think the weather right now is inviting. And from what I'm seeing, at least, seeing JC Bruno and what they've done with their patio, seeing Mighty Mud, what they've done outside, West Coast Cafe, I think it's an opportunity to just bring people down to give our small shops some business. And as long as people social distance and wear their masks, all of the studies that we're seeing show that that's the most effective way to prevent coronavirus. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, there is somebody wishing to speak, John, and because I believe it's going to be on this topic because the hand came up. So, Melissa, can we let John in, please?
Yes, John Kavranian. I've just brought you in the room. I'm trying to get you unmuted. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is John Kavranian. I've been a resident of San Bruno for 27 years. I'm speaking tonight in support of road closure for outdoor dining on San Mateo Avenue. I'm a small business owner in Burlingame on Broadway, and also I'm the president of the Broadway Business District. I have helped organize outdoor dining for the Broadway, which started about 5 weeks ago. It's been a very successful event, and I encourage you to support San Mateo Avenue road closure. Restaurants who have received PPP funding are almost depleting their funds. We may receive a few complaints from retailers in regards to the road closure, but restaurants are struggling and they're having a rough time. Retailers are able to have their doors open 7 days a week and are doing regular business. And also our local Burlingame Broadway downtown road closure, especially on Saturdays, that one-day outdoor dining is creating 1 week's worth of sales for our restaurant. Usually they have 4 or 5 tables on the sidewalks, but with the outdoor dining road closure, they're using 15, 20, 25 tables. They receive permissions from their neighbors to allow them to have tables also, and it's been very beneficial. The rainy season is coming, and this is the opportunity for our restaurants to maximize what they can before the rainy season, because when the season comes, and if you can't have indoor or outdoor, it's a big struggle. I encourage the council to work with the downtown and have this road closure for the benefit of the businesses and the community. And if you have any questions, I'm able to answer questions for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Tim O'Brien.
Hi,
Tim.
actually it's Reina.
Hi, Reina.
Hi, I actually am 100% in agreement with John and with Linda. I think that we gotta do whatever it takes for all the restaurants to in San Bruno Avenue to basically survive during this time. And the way some Burlingame is doing it, the way Redwood City is doing it also. So yeah, I think it'll be a great idea to basically have the street, the closure of that street, so to generate more people walking and dine outside. So I totally for it, and I hope you approve that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no other hands, and we'll bring it back to Linda and council.
I'd say what is. I mean, I'm definitely in support of this, obviously, but I don't know if council wants to jump in.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I had to switch over from attendees to panelists. Sorry, Marty. Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I'm in support of the concept. Our restaurants need the help. Some outreach was conducted with some help with at the time Karen Cunningham was the ambassador to the chamber, and there wasn't too much interest, but if we try this and maybe it'll spur the interest a little bit more. For me, I generally just pick up food to go. I went JC Bruno on Tuesday with the Rotary, spotlight that restaurant, ordered to go. Today went to Akagi, ordered to go. Probably put on 12 pounds, but that's okay. So are we going to have staff look into what section of San Mateo Avenue they're going to close? There's more restaurants that are located on the north end. So I'm in support of the concept. I just want to make sure that it's implemented properly and that we're not closing the whole street when there's not going to be any restaurants participating on a certain large section. Primarily that would be on the south end. But open up maybe part of the parking lot. I thought I heard JC Bruno is going to be kind of extending into that little breezeway area. So it's 4 hours a day. Maybe we can get some volunteers to help put out to reduce staff costs. But I can support this. I just want to make sure that it's going to be thought through a little bit more, and how much of the retailers do we have a sense that some of them are really objecting to it, and how many restaurants are actually going to participate. So we have a few days before I guess till next week to figure out if we're going to start this, but I think the hours are right. It does get pretty windy in the afternoons, and we give it a shot. So I can support this. I just want to make sure that we're going to get the participation, and we don't have a closed street and there's nobody really putting tables out on the street, and it's what's the point?
Yeah, and that was something I wanted to ask you. Are we talking the whole San Mateo Avenue? Are we talking certain blocks? I mean, because really, I don't know what would we be asking staff to kind of look into.
I think we leave it. I actually don't know that we have a lot of time. I think that we leave it up to staff to separate. However, to say, let's say the month of September, every Saturday in September might be a different block or a different 2 blocks. I will say that Broadway is all closed, and I know that they don't have as many restaurants as one would think either, but because they've spread out into some of the retail areas, it actually appears like it's more restaurants than it is. But I trust staff to honestly make that decision and to start marketing right away to the restaurants to say this is the weekend that your particular block will be closed. Please feel free to, start planning and preparing for it. I don't know that we have a lot of time to be going back and forth with staff.
Yeah, well, with that though, I did talk to from San Carlos and Burlingame just elected, just to kind of get their perspective, and plus what I read in the Daily Journal. So just like with the drive-in or something, it depends on staff and it depends on cost. And do we have those funds? So I mean, I know in Burlingame they have they're losing money because of the meters. So when they do that, so there is a direct effect to them. And they did do a survey. I was looking at their staff report from this month that had retailers not as happy for obvious reasons, the parking element, trying to get to things. Then there was the social distancing, according to what I heard in Burlingame, why on Burlingame, not Broadway. There was more of a concern. It became more of a festive type atmosphere and was hard to regulate as far as keeping the importance during COVID. So that's what I'm thinking, we need to kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to help staff quantify more, because I don't know. Let me tell you, I threw out like, oh, what about September 18th for drive? And I already had staff saying, or city manager specifically, like, I don't know if that's enough time. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of why I just share some of the concerns. So other thoughts or comments from other two colleagues? Councilmember David, sure, you muted yourself to talk. There you go.
I appreciate the consideration, and I think that we're all in the same thing, is that we want to be able to make decisions and recommendations to help every business in San Bruno, whether you're on San Mateo Avenue or you're on San Bruno Avenue or El Camino, et cetera. My concern is, and I've asked this question a number of times, and I haven't heard staff say, gee, there's an outpouring of requests to really open our street, and business after business want to do this. And I think I asked the question earlier. I mean, I would say you start with the first step, and the first step is you allow them to venture onto their sidewalk. West Coast Cafe has done a great little job with that. You ask them if they're interested in doing a bulb out, and they take up a parking spot or two. And then if there's not enough and you get enough businesses that are recommending, you can go from there based on the demand. But I'm just not hearing that. So I'm concerned with the same problem that Burlingame has. So for me personally, I won't go there. I'm not wanting to get out into the public because it's really actually bad. I had dinner one night in downtown Burlingame, and it's just a lot of people. And I don't feel like we're social distancing. And so I get where Burlingame's now saying, we're opening it up. We're no longer doing this. This has created a festival-like atmosphere. So I'm concerned that that's going to be the same thing, that we're not actually creating social distancing. So for me, when the streets close, I don't prefer to go there, and I prefer to pick up and get food to go. So you're going to take away that portion of the business. So again, I just think that I leave it to staff, and I really want staff to be supportive and come to us and say, Council, we're getting requests. We feel like this is a good opportunity for us to do X, Y, Z, and here's what we recommend. In addition, it's a time constraint because in Burlingame, for example, every street leading to the closed streets have a barricade with a sign that says "Street closed ahead," giving people driving into the community an update. Hey, you're going to come down a street that's going to be closed. You can't make a right turn on that next street. You can only go through. So there's an extra burden on staff when we're limited on staff. So I think we really need to pick and choose our battles and make sure they're the right ones, and make sure that we're not just creating something that's not needed. So until I can hear from staff that this is really a need and we're getting restaurants who are asking for this, I'd rather restaurants reach out to staff and figure out the best plan for each individual restaurant and see what makes sense.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I really like the idea of trying to get creative around how we help the businesses in San Bruno, and it sounds like there's been experiments and there's some data out there, but I think Councilmember Davis's concerns around just logistics. I definitely want to hear from staff on how doable some of this is in terms of, do we have the staffing available to open and close? I imagine the barricades would have to be manned in case there's some kind of an emergency where people may, the fire department or police need to get in there. Somebody would have to be able to, or I guess the police could move the barricade when they got there. But and then also, I think San Mateo Avenue has an active bus route on the weekend. So would we have to coordinate with Samtrans on rerouting buses to get around there? And I'm not sure how that would work, but also a consideration if we're talking about closing it. So I think I like the idea of blocking off some parking spots and just expanding the sidewalk area, and maybe that's easier. I don't know, and maybe that's a challenge for staff as well. So I would definitely like to hear from the city manager in terms of is this something? I mean, are we just just way out of line in looking at this, or is it something that's within the realm of something that we can do and do quickly before our good weather evaporates?
Or Indian Summers. City Manager.
Sure. Javon Grogan, City Manager. I think it's important to sort of back up before we go forward and address all those concerns. Outdoor dining, we all know it has been around for a while, but relative to COVID-19, there are essentially three types of outdoor dining that cities have tilted up. And what we're essentially would be doing is developing expedited rules about allowing outdoor dining, some of which we've done. The component that we're talking about now, we have not done. And so there are really three types of outdoor dining. One is allowing people to use part of the sidewalk. We promulgated those regulations almost 6 weeks ago and have allowed people to do it, and people are taking advantage of it. Two is allowing people to take on-street stalls away and set up tables in the parking strip. We will allow that. We have no restaurants that have taken us up on that offer. The third item is what we're talking about now, which is either a full or partial street closure to vehicular traffic. And we have not, from the staff level, stepped into that for a number of reasons that I'll articulate now. That doesn't mean that we can't go there at some time. Initially, when we allowed sidewalk dining and parklet dining, should businesses want to set it up, we reached out to businesses in various formats. Through the chamber, our fire marshal is here. He was one of our city employees that walked downtown on several days, and we reached out. And what we initially heard was, we're not interested. Some restaurants were only doing takeout because, frankly, it had a lower cost of overhead. They could just do takeout, and they were happy with that. And even when, during that time period where there could be some indoor dining, we had some restaurants just saying, hey, I'm only doing takeout. It's easier for us, put up the plexiglass, order and leave. And then the situation became more prolonged. We eventually got on the county monitoring list, and we saw more and more people setting up tables on the sidewalk, even over the last 2 weeks. As you walk downtown, you see more and more people setting up tables on the sidewalk. And so we have continued to outreach to restaurants in various fashions. What we have not heard is a large outcry for close the street. And we have not went there because while there are some areas in the county that have done that, The success is not consistent. As we know in Burlingame, ratcheted back what they were doing on Burlingame Avenue. And there's frankly a significant safety concern about creating a fair type atmosphere where you have people eating and drinking in close proximity, not wearing masks. While we know some restaurants may want it, it does pose a safety concern. And should the city council want to go that way, staff will certainly do whatever we can to facilitate it. But through the ELC, we have not picked at that and started full street closures. Full street closures also pose other challenges with San Mateo Avenue. We need to keep a 20-foot lane available for fire access, and so we would have to have manned access points if we do the entire street. As was mentioned, that is multiple access points. And so we of course would have to have those staffed with public safety personnel, other people on overtime, just because we're not set up to have that level of programming on the weekend. If we did a smaller segment, we would still have to have that. We would have to have hard barricades in some areas, but have removable barricades with people there that are able to remove them should there be an emergency and the need to access it. What I also want to say to the city council, because it was mentioned that we should do this soon, and I think it even alluded to potentially we have a few days as in doing it this weekend. I would caution the city council about rushing into this fast. A significant outreach needs to be done to the community. While we may have restaurants happy, we may have other businesses that suffer. We may have some restaurants that say, you know what, I don't want to take advantage of that. And by closing down the street in front of me, you've limited my ability for delivery services like DoorDash and people to access to come and pick up deliveries. And we know we have a lot of residents or a lot of restaurants that rely on that service. And so by closing the street in front of them, depending on where they are, what impact that will have on their business, because we want to help businesses, but we also don't want to hurt them. And there are also non-restaurant businesses that may have a thought on this. And so what I would recommend to the city council is that if you're interested in this, we take a step back, we plan it out, we do a detailed outreach to the businesses that will be affected and get input. And we talk a lot about community input and what does the community think. And there may be things like rerouting a bus route if we decide to close down a street that has an active bus route. And there's real work that goes into this. And so it's not as easy as saying, oh, let's print up some signs and have this done by Saturday. There's a lot of work, and there may also be a cost. The other thing I want to mention is that we do not know the timing upon which we will hopefully come off of the statewide monitoring list and indoor dining be allowed again. And so what are our thoughts vis-a-vis if that happens? What's the council's desire? And so as your city manager, what I would recommend is that if the council or a majority of council wants to proceed in this fashion, you provide staff with enough time to look into the matter and return to you with options, costs, and a real plan. And we do some significant outreach to all of the affected businesses. I don't think we want to try and save our restaurants and damage some of our other businesses that count on that foot traffic. Because part of what we're saying is that we want people to come to downtown, but we actually don't want too many people to come to downtown because that's unsafe right now. And so we need to really think about this and be facilitated and planned about it versus rushed would be my professional recommendation to you. And so should a majority of council want us to look into this, we are happy to do so, return to you with more data and information and robust input from all of the stakeholders along San Mateo Avenue in whatever section we or you identify to be potentially closed.
Through the chair.
Councilmember Davis.
So I would definitely recommend that staff goes back and does sort of a robust investigation to determine what the need is before we do anything, and go from there.
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I figured that was that's I think that's the right way of doing it. We just can't close it immediately, and I didn't mean to imply we're going to do it this weekend. I was thinking maybe possibly the next, but I see the benefit of getting more input and dealing with potential problems, and hopefully we have enough interest, because I noticed that more restaurants are kind of putting up the sidewalk seating. So I'm in favor of the city manager's recommendation.
Yeah, and I know in San Carlos, I think on Laurel, they had 3 areas that they had blocked off, and then they opened up one because there was not the interest. So it was like, why are we blocking that thoroughway when there wasn't the restaurants? Yeah, I always worry about the cost and staff. And let me tell you, let's say we get off the watch list, and the drive-in idea, and let's say the cinema opens back up. I'm sure they're going to say that's in competition. So that may not occur, or have to go to another location. So getting off the watch list may modify some things. But I would, something Councilmember Medina said too, there are certain areas that you wouldn't really cordon it off. There's the one that he referenced, which is way north. That's one thing. There's a lot within an area. And then there's some that probably wouldn't, and some that may not financially be able to support bringing on staff who they maybe have laid off. That is just like, hey, come back for so many hours. Well, obviously, if you have to get off unemployment to get back on for a shift, then that's not going to help them. I think what needs to be known is more realistic of the actual costs. And you're right, I was trying to read through the Burlingame staff report, but there were costs. There's staff time, there's setting up, there's closing it off, there's monitoring it, and then there's putting it away. And so that is important, I think. And then just the interest too. Saida is one maybe we can, Stroud can be reached out to for seeing if she's had requests from the merchants that she's engaged with, or that they email or talk to, or going through some of the requests for assistance. That might be something too. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I wanted to, I just don't know this, but to put a table out in a parking space, I mean, is the safety involved with that? Do we need to have a real parklet there with what's required for that? I don't know. If we were to say, let's let them take the parking spaces, well, how safe is that? And then who bears the responsibility? Somebody backs into somebody, but and that, I guess that's for the city manager. What would it take to have a parklet? Is there, what's that process to offer that to the restaurants as like the first step, and then closing the street would be like if there was more interest for that?
Sure. So the first question, if a restaurant wanted to take over parking spaces in front of their location, what would be required? So our public safety and traffic engineers have opined that it is a barricade that is capable of stopping a car. And it would likely be not just your metal barricades, but likely your barricades that can be filled with water or sand. There's a cost. There's a cost to the restaurant for doing that, and you can, potentially take 1 to 2 parking spaces, and with the sidewalk strip and what's left in the parking strip, get a few tables out there. There are also more semi-permanent structures that if a restaurant was willing to make that investment, that we would be willing to entertain for what you would more typically see in a parklet, which is something that is constructed out of wood, but is designed with certain elements that provide safety. I think personally the best example locally is Fiddler's Green in Millbrae, although that's on a street that's set in from El Camino Real. It's probably the best local example that I think our residents can think of what a parklet dining facility could look like if it's more of a semi-permanent structure. And again, with the regulations that we promulgated through the EOC, we are willing to support any businesses that would like to do that, either the barricade version or something that is more formally constructed.
Councilmember Mason.
Yeah, I would just say that I feel like we've once again heard all the reasons why we cannot do something when every other city largely has already done it. And I want to just point out that while Burlingame Avenue has stepped back, Broadway has actually not stepped back, as was mentioned earlier, that the blocking off of the street has greatly helped their businesses. And so I'm really disappointed to hear so much concern over something that so many other cities have actually successfully done, and something that we're just going to wait and the boat's going to pass, and hopefully more businesses don't close, because when we first moved to San Bruno, a number of storefronts were empty, and I've already seen 2 close. I just heard that the flower shop is closing on San Mateo Avenue, and another business has closed up in Bay Hill. And I think that it's something that we should have already done. We haven't done it. We hesitated to do sidewalk dining. Sidewalk dining has started. It's popular. I almost think sidewalk dining in certain locations is actually more of a danger, because you've got to walk through all the different tables, because you can't walk on the street because it's not closed. And I think that if we're gonna wait, I don't know that we're gonna get anywhere at this point, because we're already really realistically in September. So I'm disappointed. I feel like we waited a long time for sidewalk dining. We learned about parklets, I think, this past week. Again, there's significant concern over something that other cities are doing successfully. So that's it. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Councilmember Davis, and I don't know if the city manager said something.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, man, I don't know if that's a speech running for mayor. I'm very offended by your comments, because as a council, we look for the recommendation by staff, and staff is coming back to us saying, you know what, we're not hearing it. We're not seeing the recommendation. So 1 or 2 businesses that may have talked to you about this, I'm not hearing it, and there's no facts in front of us to say that we want to put staff time. By the way, who's working on the weekends to set this up? Are we paying overtime for that? Or are we bringing people in that we've laid off, or the people who haven't filled positions? We have to pick and choose our battles. We need to do these things appropriately and in the right time. And just jumping down because of what we want to do and everybody else is doing it doesn't make it right for San Bruno or right for us. Let's let staff go and review the process, reach out to the businesses, and if this is what we want them to come back, I'll have a special meeting next week. I'll have one on Friday if that's what we're hearing. But let's make sure we do the right thing first before we create a lot of work for people and it's not needed. It's not fair to the limited staff we already have on service and the budget that's tight. So where's the money going to come from?
So I'm not sure if there's a response that's requested to that. Because the staff has gone down San Mateo Avenue already, I believe, 2 or 3 times. So there is some feedback. And my understanding also is that not all staff has spoken with owners. They've spoken with people who are working, not necessarily the owner of the business. So I know that there's costs associated with everything, but there's costs associated with losing business forever if they close. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Medina and, I'm sorry, yes, please.
Oh, if somebody else has their hands up, I mean, that's fine.
No, I thought I had skipped over city manager, but I don't think I did.
Well, I think the city manager is open to having staff spend some time. I mean, maybe he could provide, how much staff that would be, but to send a couple people down again to see if those restaurant owners and I think I wouldn't have a problem, telling the ones I know, say, hey, it's a possibility. Let them know that you're interested, right? And then maybe we could figure out what we can do. I don't think we can just close it. Like definitely not this weekend, but I think the idea would be maybe to look at doing something by next weekend potentially. Is that too hopeful, City Manager? For next weekend, is that just out of the question, or
is that Labor Day weekend? I forgot.
Through the mayor, in response to Councilmember Medina's question, what I think the best course of action, given the council discussion, is for us to do a specific and dedicated outreach to all of the businesses on San Mateo Avenue, and let's come back to that because I think we can narrow it down to a certain segment tonight that will make that outreach more efficient, given the comments that have been made. But we do a dedicated outreach to all of the businesses, not just the restaurants, and get their feedback. And it is true that staff has walked it several times. Sometimes we talk to business owners, sometimes we talk to the individuals that were there. The chamber also reached out through their contacts and their surveys and their people making individual calls. And it is true to this date, we have not had a significant number of restaurants saying, hey, we want to close down a portion of San Mateo Avenue. I think in all honesty, we haven't really asked that question very specifically and emphatically. Hey, do you want an outdoor the street closed, and here's what that would look like, what's the impact on your business? I think we can ask that question. Just to set the record straight, because it was said that we were late to sidewalk dining, and we just heard about parklet dining this week. To set the record straight, we were the absolute first in the county to promulgate emergency sidewalk dining regulations right after we were allowed to do so. We were the absolute first. Those came out, I believe, on a Friday, and we pushed them out. Those same regulations that were the first in the county also included the ability for restaurants to do parklets. We have not had any restaurants say, I want to do a parklet. What I would tell you, I think that's largely because that involves cost. It involves cost, both staff time and equipment. And there sort of have been this wave impact of restaurants were considered essential, so they were open, but they could only do takeout. And then they could do takeout plus indoor dining. And when we were in that vein, some restaurants were just okay, takeout only. And then some were saying, hey, the couple tables I have inside plus takeout, I'm fine. And then we're on the state watch list where you can only do takeout. And then we saw what we see now, which is almost every week, more and more restaurants are setting out tables on the sidewalk, which again, we were the first in the county to allow. It's just people did not take advantage of that. And I don't think, and I know we had staff walk it. We had outreach through the Chamber of Commerce. I think the honest answer is this is new and foreign territory to all of us. And people are making the decisions based on their unique circumstance and as the situation develops. But let nothing I said tonight make anyone on the city council or the public feel that the staff is not in favor of it. The only recommendation you've heard is, if we're going to do it, let's step into it methodically. Let's understand the cost. Let's understand what all of our stakeholders want and desire. And with that said, I think what I've heard from the city council is all of San Mateo Avenue for this potential closure has challenges. So looking at a segment of San Mateo Avenue is more appropriate. And then I've heard sort of that northern side has the largest area of restaurants that we think that I think I've heard sort of this may be more appropriate for. And so what I would ask council is, again, if we want to narrow it down, that would make the outreach sort of easier, right, and more tailored. And the other thing that I did mention, and we confirmed that there is a bus route that goes from Genovan north. And so, work with Samtrans about that is important.
Yeah, I think it's who you're trying to reach. If it's strategic, then no, it wouldn't be all of San Mateo out. If you're as was discussed, it's more eateries. If you're talking about trying to get the hair salons and other things, and that's more broad based. And I know being on a conference call with Redwood City, they had challenges because they were having hair cutting salons near restaurants, and that didn't mesh too well, obviously. So there was logistic. I know it sounds funny, but when I was listening to it, I go, well, that makes sense. But and her job was to try to coordinate that in Redwood City, and she was giving us an update on the local economic recovery committee for the, and so that's why she was one of the speakers. So if it's mainly for the eateries, then it should be more strategic. It should not just be the whole San Mateo Avenue, in my opinion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I think based on my research and working with Karen Cunningham and compiling the data, that most likely will be on the northern side. Staff could quickly. There's only a few restaurants on the southern side. One of them, Cleo's, is out of business. The Brazilian steakhouse. They're either going through a remodel. Cabayan also closed down, shuttered up. So there's probably not too many restaurants left on the south end that, and those that we talked to weren't too interested. So it wouldn't take too much time to get that confirmed that they're still not interested, and it wouldn't seem reasonable probably to shut down that whole block for 2 restaurants when there's another 20 businesses down that street. But I think that as we're going forward to have staff do what the city manager said, and maybe and we're not ignoring. I'm not ignoring what I've heard from John either from Burlingame, that restaurants are struggling even more as we're right here right now, as their money's running out, as they're figuring out, like, maybe this is their last month if they can't figure it out. And maybe we get off the watch list in a month, maybe, who knows? So doing the additional research, taking a pause, but with the plan to quickly get that data so we could justify doing what we're doing. So I'm in favor of that, of at least taking that step and see where we can get from there. If it means the parking lots that are nearby those restaurants, maybe allowing them to take some of those spaces, right? And it's doing whatever we can. If the interest is there, if they're going to bring their workers back and put tables out and do the labor and do all that, then I'm willing to meet them and extend my hand. But if there's no interest there, then there's no interest there.
Yeah, and I did notice today one of the restaurants took the side parking and put a nice awning on it, and so quite a bit of open space. So they're utilizing that parking. They did really good.
Yeah,
impressed.
If staff is really busy, if staff is busy, they're always busy. I get it. I will offer to be and walk the neighborhood to assist staff. You want to make a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee, I'm willing to serve on it. I'm not running for any position this year, so it's not political.
Noted.
So I think you'd be safe.
I think you're
safe. So I volunteer to be that ad hoc person, and I'll assist staff, and I know a lot of the merchants already. So let's get it done.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
I was just going to say I agree with Marty, and I commend him for stepping up to being the guy to go out and get some answers. And maybe that can be coordinated with staff so that we get the data. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to create solutions and then try to find a problem to apply them to. So if there's no interest, then definitely, yeah. I mean, I have no problem allocating some taxpayer dollars to helping our businesses if there's an interest and people are willing to take advantage of it. But being that the city manager is telling us that there hasn't been interest yet, Maybe that data is a little stale, so let's definitely get some new data. Let's find out if there's some interest in doing anything here, and get that input, because no sense in doing it if no one's going to take advantage.
So, through the mayor, if I can.
Please.
So, I hate to be the one to say this, but the city attorney has informed me that appointing a subcommittee, be it one person or multiple people, is not on the agenda, so you can't do that.
Unofficially?
Let me say this, it was said sort of staff is busy, of course. I mean, we're dealing with a pandemic and all this other stuff, but, and, people are still working from home. Hey, council wants us to look into this. We will do a robust outreach. And Marty, we'll do the survey, and, we'll give you all the information, call people up, walk San Mateo Ave, encourage the business owners to fill it out and provide their feedback. And then we will use that data to inform the information that goes back to you. And I think we can hopefully do that in relatively short order and get it back to you in an off agenda memo. And if it's looking like there's significant robust interest, we can put together a plan and even schedule a special meeting if necessary and put together the full plan. I think what council is saying is when you sort of look on a map, clearly there's a cohort of restaurants between Cane's and Angus. I think the question is, do you go extend past Cane's and Angus and go from Cane's to Genevieve would be too far. Sylvan. And so clearly Cane's to Angus is, I think, the stretch that everyone's talking about. And the question is, do you also go Angus to Sylvan? There are not a lot of restaurants on that area. There are a few.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from council is to make more strategic where there are eateries. What I'm hearing is Marty can certainly give you a list of contacts and or maybe those of interest, and that might assist staff. And is that that was good.
That's me walking downtown.
I figured that one out. Is that good enough, Jovan?
Yes.
Manager?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're gonna take a look at Cane's to Angus, given the number of restaurants there versus the other stretch. If that's okay with council or other direction, do you want to have a larger area surveyed or a more tailored area?
I'm fine with the area that you just talked about.
Yeah, and I just want to say I think that there might be a difference in semantics, but there's an email that our city manager sent to us in June that talks about how other jurisdictions have allowed outdoor dining prior to us, and separates the al fresco dining from actual outdoor dining. And so just for purposes of the record, it is clear that other jurisdictions did allow for al fresco dining before us, and it goes into a separation with outdoor, with closures versus outdoor dining. So maybe it would be worth it to go back to the chamber and ask who has been questioned in the past, and then ask those same people within those street closures that you just mentioned, whether they might be interested now if they weren't before, and to make sure that you're speaking with the owners of the locations.
Okay, there was another item, Councilmember, in regards to the recognition for random act of kindness at San Bruno Avenue and San Mateo Avenue on August the 12th, 2020.
Oh yeah, this was just a really great story. A fellow lion, I'm not a lion, but I'll say a fellow lion, Marco Durazo, happened to see a woman jump out of her car and really just helped this little old lady cross the street. Her name is Artie Singh, and she actually doesn't want praise. She just feels like she did something nice. And we messaged each other a couple of times, but she didn't want any praise. And from what I gather, because we spoke, and she said, I was just doing something nice. And I was just really impressed watching the video. You see nobody honking, nobody is getting impatient. She didn't even flinch to get out of the car to help this woman she didn't know. And it just seems like at a time when everybody is so, defensive over a number of things that, tones are unnecessary. You've got this nice woman just jumping out of her car, helping this stranger. So I think we need more of that. And it was really a beautiful video to see. And within a day of being shared, it had over like 25,000 views. And I just thought it was quite beautiful. So to Miss Singh, we really thank you. And it definitely brightened up my day to watch that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, just two comments, announcement, and that it is amazing how people sometimes just do the right thing because they're good people, and I wanted to share something that happened with my neighbor Jay Morena and his girlfriend Amy Yee. They were driving up 280. And they saw a fire, and they saw a couple fires as it was going on. And after talking to him more about it, they stopped their car, tried to, with their case of Costco water, they were trying to put it out as best they could. And, it's funny, or coincidentally, this same guy is in charge of the Second Harvest Food Bank distribution that's going to happen on this Thursday from 2:45 to 4:15 p.m. Bel Air Schools. If does that come out right? Mm-hmm. Call this number 1-800-984-3663, and you can sign up and you can have food on Thursday. And we do it every month. A bunch of volunteers from St. Robert's, Sister Cheryl and her group, with Lions and Rotary and community members with Leslie Hatamia. I always have a hard time saying that. Helping get these volunteers, and it's great. So get your food, do good deeds, wear your mask, wash your hands, all that good stuff. Thank you.
Anything from you, Mr. Salazar?
No, just can we adjourn?
Okay. Anything from you, Mrs. Davis? You're on mute. You're still on mute. Okay. I will just end and thank Councilmember Davis, who not only worked a full day, but also spent her birthday with us this evening. I'm sorry we didn't have a cake, but we all couldn't get together. But what's left of your birthday, enjoy the last 30 minutes of it. But,
happy birthday.
Best wishes. And with that said, we're going to adjourn to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on September 2020 at 7 o'clock. Everybody, best wishes. Stay healthy, stay strong. Good night.